Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Alex Smith, Rupert Honeywood, Business Growth Bureau. This is episode 5. This is the lead generation side of it all. So in the last episode, we gave you an introduction as to what's coming now. So this is lead generation, after this is prospect nurturing, and then we're going to be moving on to actual sales optimization. So I suppose in this one, we're going to be trying to tackle what we think are the top biggest things to worry about in terms of lead generation, in terms of how to do it. And we're going to start from different platforms to start with, and then we'll delve into each. So the first one, I suppose, let's go with Google. Everybody knows about Google. Everyone knows about things like pay-per-click and stuff like that. What's your opinion on pay-per-click and should I be using it?
Google and pay-per-click can work very well. The thing is that you have to think an awful lot about the people you're trying to target.
Yep.
So, for example, one of the big challenges is that some of the key phrases or keywords you want to use are really, really expensive. So, for example, you could pay anything from 50p, which doesn't sound like very much, all the way to 5, 10, 20 pounds per click or even more. And remember, a click is just purely a click. That is a click through to your website. Doesn't mean so they're going to take any form of action at all.
So a good thing to maybe take away from that is to think about it. Although a click sounds impressive, you could actually get no result from it. So even if your website's very well optimized, you're only getting someone to the website. You're not actually getting someone to get to the product. They're not actually going through to actually buy a service. So just bear that in mind, maybe.
That's right. And you may have only, bear in mind when someone goes to your website, you've probably got 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds to grab someone's attention before they're off again. So that's all you're talking about in a lot of cases. The way you can bring the cost per click down is to actually use what's classed as long-tail keywords. And you have to be quite expert at that. It may be for your target market, you might have to develop 200 or 300 long-tail keywords.
It might be worth mentioning, just to take away from that then, of actually for you to go away and actually research what long-tail keywords actually are.
Yeah.
Because that could actually work quite well for you. So if you're not limited on cash, but you want to make a bit of an impact for the minimal amount of cost, long-tail keywords could be a great way for you to move forward with that.
And that can be very good. Also, where pay-per-click a big plus of pay-per-click is it tends to be quite immediate. So you could decide to spend perhaps £100, £50, £100, £200, whatever that sum of money is, and try out lots of different types of messages and see what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
And a lot of it is about real experimentation. And then added to which, of course, you ideally want people going to a highly optimized landing page on your website to actually tie in with that message you're putting out on Google or Facebook or wherever it may be.
Yeah, of course. So I suppose the good thing to take away from that is that pay-per-click can work, but start low. Start with, say, £100, £200 to see what kind of keywords work, and then maybe ramp that up. Is that, I suppose, a good way to
that's right. But obviously, very importantly, from that, when you've got people to the website, and the way something is worded on your website can make a massive difference.
Right.
And the way you encourage people to opt in. So, for example, if you put the word free in there, then, of course, you're going to be getting a lot of people who perhaps don't necessarily want to pay for stuff. On the other hand, free is one of the most powerful words you can use. So when you get people to the website, you need the landing page needs to be very well developed to get people's attention, have a lot of positive reinforcement in there. And it shouldn't be basically just your website. It needs to be a particular landing page. And you may have multiple landing pages to suit different key phrases or keywords.
It might be worth mentioning at this point as well, especially as we're on the lead generation side and the pay-per-click side of it, is to think not just about getting the click, it's how much value can you put behind that click, or how much value can you put behind that landing page. For an example of that is we produce these videos, not in a hope to get you to our website, but just to share our name, but also to share how much value we've potentially got to share around this kind of industry. So think about what you're currently doing now with your current efforts, and pay-per-click could be a very good way forward, but at the same time, think about how much value you're putting to your clients before, how much knowledge, how much content are you actually sharing with the industry before you get them to get to the website, before they actually discover your products and want to buy your services. What are you doing to get them to that point? Which brings us quite nicely actually onto email marketing. Sorry, go on.
No, email marketing can be a great space to operate in. Obviously, there's two main things to bear in mind with email marketing now. Is first of all, because everyone's doing it, it can be very difficult to rise above the noise. And the other thing is, if you're based in Europe or in the UK, you've got new legislation around GDPR, which unfortunately is a very boring subject. but it has made some of this a little bit more difficult,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to sell to individual consumers
In
rather
that
than to businesses.
In that case, and that's a great point for the people watching, because I know I use email marketing within our organisation, and I know it works very, very well. But for the people watching, what would be the maybe top 3 tips to take away from email marketing? I know I'll throw the first one in of the title, the strapline, how you engage with people, and how you grab people's attention is so important from the first off. So we find something along the lines of not giving away what you're actually trying to get to them, but asking a question in the email is really, really important. So, for example, for us would be, what could you do extra with 8 to 13 hot prospects? That's one of our strap lines. And that, well, you start thinking about what you would actually do with that amount of extra activity and so on and so forth. So what would be 2 or 3 other kind of top tips for email marketing?
Yeah, with email marketing, first of all, remember, especially if you're, let's forget about the compliance part for a moment, because that's quite a complex area in its own right. But first of all, remember to treat people as individuals as much as you can. It may be, especially in the first 2 or 3 emails actually, you may be just sharing massive amounts of value along the lines you've been talking about already. And there's a ratio which is like an unspoken ratio, but it might be for every 5 emails that you send out, 4 of them are sharing value and all the good stuff around that, and only 1 possibly contains some form of sales message in there. Because otherwise what will happen is people will just unsubscribe and your mailing list will go down to virtually nothing.
Right, okay. And then, so that's the second tip. What would be the third tip to take away from?
Yeah, also be very careful if you've actually bought any lists, forgetting again about compliance. For example, if you get a very high bounce rate, you could find you get blocked by your ISP or blacklisted by Google as well. And there's all sorts of things you need to be very careful about that. Make sure your emails are very engaging and think about smart ways of connect, engage with people so they want to move things on to the next step.
And I don't personally know the answer to this, but you might. And for people watching at home, is there a way, if I have an email list right now, is there a way of me cleansing it at all so I can see whether this data is actually still valid?
That's a really good point, because the actual decay rate on an email list is around about 30% per year on average. And if you were getting a 30% bounce rate, again, that's very much in the danger territory. So if your list is more than 6 months old and you haven't been regularly messaging people, so you've not been maintaining your list, what you'll find is a large part that will go out of date. Also, people will forget they've subscribed, so the risk is that they could hit the report button again. So to actually validate email addresses, if, for example, in the B2B space, or if you use LinkedIn, if you believe you know what the email address is but not 100% sure, there's a tool which you can use, which LinkedIn have actually acquired, called Reportive. It used to be an independent product, and that's quite a good way of actually testing whether that email address is still valid or not. A lot of the other...
I'm sorry, just for everyone watching, what's that program called?
It's called Reportive.
Reportive. And is that an app on my phone, or is that a Google?
It's a plugin which I believe goes into Chrome, along with LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's a very good way. There are other validation methods as well. Some are rather hit and miss, though, so be a little bit careful about some of those.
Now let's move on to social media. Obviously, I'm fanatic about social media. I'm sure you watching now either understand the importance of it, because if you found our video, you've obviously understand the importance of social media and you know the power of it's got, especially for the future. Let's because of how broad this subject could be, let's just tackle the top 3 or 4 of which we use in the B2B space at the moment, but sometimes spills over in B2C. Top B2B social media platforms right now, what are they?
Well, LinkedIn is probably the first one. At the moment, they've got nearly 700 million businesses on there, or people in association with their business. In the UK alone, it's something like 23 million currently. And even if you said 4 or 5 million profiles a little bit dormant, that's still 18 million people on LinkedIn. Remember, people are representing themselves in a personal capacity, but in association with their business or their employment.
And at this point here, for that method and for any message through social media, it'd be great to go back what we said into and what we will be covering on the next episode about that importance of building the relationship of trust.
Yeah.
On any form of social media, don't just go straight out with buy my stuff. Think about what you're doing in terms of sharing value before. Think about what you're doing to actually engage with people before you're asking them to actually sign on the dotted line. What would be the second platform right now?
The second platform probably would be Facebook.
Yeah.
And Facebook is very good both through sort of groups and pages, but also some of the power you can do through advertising and context-sensitive advertising, where those advertisements effectively follow you around, can be very, very powerful. And there is a bit of a crossover with what you use Facebook for and LinkedIn. But it's certainly a very good platform to look at.
And then the third one is, I know I'm fanatic about Instagram, and I'm thinking you're probably going to say the same. That for Instagram for us is so good, simply because it's visual. You can flick through pictures, you can get a great point across through pictures, and you can add a bit of text to it. Why do you think, Rupert, that Instagram's so important right now?
I think, first of all, it's very visual. It's very up and coming. Obviously, the fact that Facebook have acquired Facebook have acquired Instagram. Some people are very sceptical about that to start with, but overall, it is working pretty well. Also, the way you can incorporate videos and stories in there and swipe up and all this type of stuff is absolutely great. But I think there's also a fourth one, which it's very easy to forget about actually now, because it's possibly seen as a little bit less hip and a little bit less trendy. But we shouldn't forget about Twitter as well. And the reason that Twitter is still very relevant is that you get obviously people out there who've got a massive presence on there. It's really good if you want to share a lot of content and be able to click through to different pages on your website and this other type of stuff as well. So Twitter's got a massive following too, but it's particularly good if you want to broadcast messages.
And I suppose it would be good as well, because obviously we've released our podcast now as well, which people hopefully are listening to as well. So if you're listening to this on podcast, thank you. But I suppose as well, audio is, I think, the future in terms of gaining mass amounts of information, simply because the problem with video, although you're watching this right now, hopefully, the problem with video is you can't watch and drive, you can't watch and do the washing up, you can't watch and do the cooking at home because you need your hands, whereas audio is the future in terms of being able to consume content. So it'd be quite good to talk about that for a second. What do you think about audio?
Well, I think audio is very powerful, and I think you and I are big fans of Audible, but obviously you've got podcasts through iTunes and all this other type of stuff, which is fantastic. A great point that Alex made there. Interesting enough, I was explaining at a conference the other day that I've got a video series which I particularly like, and it's one I quite like to watch in every now and again. But because it is video, I have watched it on video a couple of times, but because also the content is so good, I've actually converted that video into audio so I can listen to it in the car.
Yeah, so I suppose, not to contradict what we're saying now, but I suppose just a way of finishing this series off is to say, think about the way that you're producing your content at the moment. If it is video, think about how you can move that over to audio. Things like podcasts and so on and so forth. Downloadable content like podcasts and things like that are going to be so powerful in the future, especially as you can listen to it on the go. You can still continue to do most things while listening to your podcast still and not worrying about having to stream video and so on and so forth. So that'd be a great way, I suppose, of wrapping that up. Would you agree?
Yes, I think it is. Although I think in reality what we both realise between us both now is this is a much bigger subject than we first thought. So I think we're going to end up having to have a lead generation part 2, which will be in the next video, which will be looking a lot more about things like segmentation as well. So, but I think the fact we've covered all these topics now, hopefully we've
opened up a tin of worms, eh?
Yeah,
well,
yeah, exactly.
Like any time. So thank you so much for watching. As I said, I'm Alex Smith. This is Rupert Honeywood, Business Growth Bureau. Thank you so much for watching. Like I always say, your feedback is our oxygen. We love hearing what our clients and what you potentially think of us. So if you have enjoyed it, or if you haven't, leave a comment in below. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much. Take care.